Welcome into the Solo Shot Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Dom Manna. Happy Solo Shot Small Business Saturday. Yes, here from the ETV Community Media Center, where this small business has allowed me to have this platform and this higher production quality for all of you for 132 episodes now. Wow, that's crazy to say out loud. So I'm going to leave the link in the description to ETV's merch store. Consider repping them and helping support the media that matters here in this facility, as well as supporting local businesses wherever you may be listening. I'm sure you got plenty of great deals on Black Friday and Cyber Monday that starts at like November 1st now. There's plenty of opportunities for you to get good deals from the big corporations, but support small businesses, make those considerations, and that support, especially with the year that we've had, it's very, very important to support small businesses. And the wheeling and dealing isn't just for us this time of year shopping for the holidays. The baseball teams are starting to really get into the market as well. I talked about the hot stove starting to simmer last week, and we've gotten some bigger moves finally starting to happen. Some bigger dominoes have fallen. The first of which was the New York Mets and the Texas Rangers doing a true baseball trade, 1-for-1, sending outfielder Brandon Nimmo, the longest tenured Met, over to the Texas Rangers for favorite of the show, Marcus Semien, second baseman of the Texas Rangers. Marcus Semien is owed $72 million over the next 3 years. Brandon Nimmo is owed $20.5 million a year for the next 5. So the Mets take on more salary in the short term, but they open up long-term spending. Nimmo, like I said, the longest tenured Met, had a career year before signing his extension, playing center field, showing real tools with the bat. And while he has maintained being a very solid hitter, some injuries, both to his neck as well as some lower body stuff, have taken him into more of a corner role, which is fine, but not necessarily the value they thought that they were getting for the early parts of this contract, with 5 years remaining, him being in a corner, him having one of the weaker throwing arms in baseball. Brandon Nimmo, in that flexibility now, because the Mets have Juan Soto locked up in one of the corners, they decided to improve their middle infield defense with Marcus Semien, who missed 41 games last year, for the most games he's missed in a very long time, but still put up 3.3 WAR and won the Gold Glove in the American League at second base. He's a former shortstop. He's a great defender. And while he started off the year absolutely dreadful last year, his last 55 games played, he really started to heat things up with the bat again. And I think he can be somewhere in that league average to slightly above league average range with the Gold Glove defense up the middle with Francisco Lindor. I really like the move there. I like the situation change for Semien, getting put into an environment that's hungry to win, as opposed to a Texas Rangers team that the past few years since the World Series have taken steps backwards. As an offense, him being the leadoff hitter, scoring a bunch of runs and hitting for power might not be in the cards anymore, but being a contributor to a Mets team with Lindor and Soto and others locked into this offense, I'm very, very excited. And the Rangers, they want to cut payroll in the year-to-year range, obviously, with DFAing Jonah Heim and Adolis Garcia. With making this move, they're floating Corey Seager out there on the trade market. But this move specifically allows them to maintain some level of competitiveness, because Nimmo is still a very good hitter and will slot into their outfield. Right now, they have him listed playing right field, replacing Adolis. But saving $6 million a year on the commitment to get into an outfielder from Semien as an infielder. It'll be interesting to see what the Rangers do with the rest of their offseason, even more so, I think, than the Mets, just to see what they're really trying to do with this retool. Because for Mets fans, you know that this is the first of many moves. They're going to go out and figure out the closing role. They're going to sign another bat. They're going to sign a starting pitcher or two. The Mets will spend. The Rangers look to be cutting spending, and it'll be interesting to see how they do that, because Skip Schumacher, who was, in my opinion, the number one coach on the market this offseason, chose to go to Texas because he believes that they're trying to win baseball games. This move necessarily isn't a tanking move by any means, but it shows that they're trying to cut payroll, and it's hard to cut payroll while also maintaining competitive balance. Now, Another trade that happened a little closer to home here, the Boston Red Sox traded number 5 pitching prospect Brandon Clark and Richard Fitz over to the St. Louis Cardinals for 36-year-old Sonny Gray and $20 million cash. They reworked Sonny Gray's deal where essentially the Red Sox will be paying $21 million for him for the 2026 Major League Baseball season. The Cardinals are covering the rest. There's a $10 million buyout and a mutual option next year for $30 million. If you know anything about the history of the mutual option, there's only been one accepted since it's been implemented, and it was all the way back in 2013. So whether the player doesn't want to come back and wants to test the market or the team doesn't see the value in the mutual option, it's hard to get those two sides to agree, foreshadowing for this upcoming lockout that we have coming in 2027, how hard it is for these two sides to come to agreements. Sonny Gray, last year, not so good. The ERA, well over 4. His fastball was one of the worst pitches in baseball that was thrown minimum 500 times. It got hit very, very hard. But if you look at if you're a fan of Baseball Savant and looking under the hood, there's a lot of things to like about Sonny Gray's approach. He is a durable guy. He's someone that has pitched at least 24 starts in every full season since 2019. He is someone that strikes out batters at a high quality. He was top 5 in the big leagues and the number 1 in the National League last year in strikeout to walk percentage. So he's got the stuff. And if you know anything about Andrew Bailey and the Red Sox new pitching philosophy, it's a lot about throwing less fastballs and throwing more of your off-speed stuff, especially if that's what's successful. So Sonny Gray's sweeper being one of the top 3 in the sport in terms of whiff rate, getting him in the pitching lab in Boston, I expect him to put up a really solid season. And with the $21 million on the book, it's essentially the same as them giving Lucas Giolito the qualifying offer, which I know some people were in favor of doing. I think Sonny Gray is a much safer, higher upside Lucas Giolito, because if you looked at his Baseball Savant numbers from last year, it looked like he was getting very lucky with the ERA and the home run numbers and everything like that. And while I wish him the best, was a really good Boston Red Sox and teammate, I'd rather roll with Sonny Gray. Now, the interesting side of this, outside of the Red Sox making their first big move of the offseason with Chaim Bloom and the St. Louis Cardinals, is that the Boston Red Sox came right out and said, we need a number 2 pitcher that can start a playoff game slotted behind Garrett Crochet. And while Sonny Gray can hit all of those things, Sonny Gray, like I said, is essentially a 1-year commitment for 2026 at 36 years old. A lot of people were expecting them to trade for someone with multiple years of control that they would be able to extend, whether that be a Joe Ryan, a Hunter Green, a Mackenzie Gore. There's been a bunch of names floated out there, Tarek Skubal and Paul Skeens, of course. When are those guys going to get moved? But we end up getting Sonny Gray. I think most Red Sox fans are on the consensus here that Sonny Gray, if he's the Lucas Giolito replacement, and you still go out and trade for a number 2, another front end arm, you're really competing. You're really going for it. And if you don't, if Sonny Gray ends up slotting in as your number 2 starter, you can get by with that, but that's not the prince that was promised. So I'm very excited to see what the rest of the Red Sox offseason has in store. I think you need to add 2 bats and 1 more arm. And I'm talking starting rotation arm. Richard Fitz was a back-end starter, and they have a lot of those right now. Breslow said in the press conference, 3 through 10, I feel really good. And I think if the rotation going into the season is Crochet, blank number 2, Gray, Bayo, and then one of Crawford or Sandoval to start the year, with Early, Tolley, Harrison, and a bunch of other guys waiting in the wings, Perales, etc. Kyson Witherspoon and Marcus Phillips, who were just drafted last year, might shoot up through the major leagues like Early and Tolley did at the end of the year. Very, very interested to see the Red Sox rest of the season, much like I talked about with the Simeon-Nimmo swap. This is so early in the offseason. that you can't fully judge it until you see the corresponding moves. Because I don't expect this to be the move for any of those three teams, but the combination of moves will define if it is a successful offseason or something leaving your fans wanting more. And if you're talking about leaving your fans wanting more, the Toronto Blue Jays were one Miguel Vargas swing away from beating the Goliath, the Los Angeles Dodgers, and winning their first World Series championship since 1993. They were 1 out away. Jose Barrios was not available for them in that series. Max Scherzer, future Hall of Famer, a lot of respect. He pitched really well when called upon. He shouldn't be starting a World Series game at this point in his career for a legitimate contender, a top 5 spender in the sport. The Blue Jays got Shane Bieber to commit to his team option. So he's back for 1 year. You got 1 more year of Kevin Gausman. Trey Savage has emerged as a legitimate starting pitching option for you. And then they go out and they get the highest upside pitcher on the market in Dylan Cease, 7 years, $210 million, $30 million a season for 7 years for Dylan Cease. And I know a lot of people, much like Sonny Gray, will say his ERA was over 4. That's ridiculous. How is he getting that kind of money? If you look under the hood, he was very unlucky with FIP. He's one of only 4 active pitchers that has a 5-year stretch consecutively of 200 plus strikeouts, which he's currently on. He misses bats. He makes his starts. He has good stuff. He's in his late 20s. He was going to get close to $200 million and 5 to 8 years of commitment from somebody. That this does not come as a shock to me at all. He was the highest upside guy, but also has a pretty high floor. So Dylan Cease going to the Blue Jays, I think this shows Blue Jays fans, I think it shows Vladimir Guerrero, who just made a 15-year commitment, that this team smelled the championship and they want more. So they're going back for it. This is also protection, like I said, with Barrios, Bieber, and Gausman not locked up long-term after this. If they're not able to recover all of those guys, they will have Cease and Savage at the top of the rotation for the next 6-7 years. So I really liked the move. I don't think this stops the Blue Jays from re-signing Bo Bichette or signing Kyle Tucker. Making one of those big moves is still on the table for them. They have a ton of money. They've been trying to throw it at people for years. They were willing to give Shohei Ohtani $700 million. They were willing to give Juan Soto $750. If you can spread that out and give, instead of giving one player $700, you give 3 studs $2 to 3. That math still works. So I'm very, very excited for Blue Jays fans. I hate seeing this in my own division as a Red Sox fan. But it's a really good move. It's an aggressive move. And if you're going to overextend in terms of years and dollars, it's got to be for someone with the combination of floor and upside that Cease provides. So I liked the move. I know a lot of people were like, how does he get that? Make sure your kid has a baseball in his hand because he can have a 4 ERA and make $30 million a year. Dylan Cease is not just a guy in the big leagues that can throw the ball. He takes the ball every 5th day. He gives you a high ceiling with a pretty high floor. That's the kind of guy you want in your rotation. Is he a true ace? Is he a Cy Young favorite? Probably not. That time has passed in his career. There was a time in Chicago where he was looking like that. But he is a really solid 2 or 3 starter on any rotation in baseball outside of maybe the Dodgers where they can have Cy Young winners 1 through 3. So I really like the move. Blue Jays fans, congratulations. Also like these trades we talked about. I don't think this behooves them from making more moves. So I'm very, very excited to see what the Blue Jays have in store coming that close to a World Series championship. I like seeing the aggressiveness from them this early. Here at the Solo Shot Sports Podcast, we have to throw back down the third baseline to this date in baseball history. And November 29th had quite a few things for me to choose from. But when we're talking about these early offseason moves and we're talking about really making a statement, early bird gets the worm in the market, there's very few moves in the decade of the 70s that had more impact than on this day in 1976, the New York Yankees acquiring Hall of Fame slugger Reggie Jackson, Mr. October, coming off a shockingly well-remembered time of being a Baltimore Oriole in the second half of the season after getting traded there from the Oakland Athletics. Reggie Jackson ended up bringing the Yankees back to glory, winning championships, 3 home runs on 3 swings off 3 different pitchers in the World Series, getting donned Mr. October. Truly one of those moves where it's like, oh, you got that guy to add to Thurman Munson and Greg Nettles and the core of guys that you have there. It was one of those moves that got the Yankees over the top. And there are some guys this offseason that aren't necessarily 500 home run Hall of Fame guys, but are real impact bats like Kyle Schwarber, like Pete Alonso, like Alex Bregman, that have done it in the big moments as well. Those are the kind of guys that you want your team to be aggressively going after, to adding, to being that next piece that helps level you up from a non-playoff team to a wild card team, or a playoff pretender to a playoff contender, or a legit playoff contender to a World Series favorite. These are the guys that shift the way your team can be viewed. And obviously the Yankees hit a grand slam home run with Reggie Jackson. It wasn't really a shock. He was a proven stud and winner already, being part of Oakland A's World Series championships and having a ton of home runs already on the record books. But it's just a reminder that it's never too early to put these guys on your Christmas list to get the deal done. It doesn't have to go into the winter meetings. It doesn't have to go into spring training. If you see someone that can change your baseball team, go out there and get them. And that's where I'll kind of round everything together here with the holiday shopping. It's that time of year where we're approaching the winter meetings. We're going to have next Sunday new baseball Hall of Famers announced, where we're getting into that part of the offseason, approaching Christmas, of course. Get your holiday shopping in, both for you as consumers out there, as well as your baseball teams. Get some of this big shopping done. Get some of those things out of the way to have less stress going into the holiday, going into the new year. And I'm excited to see, with all the rumors that have been floating around, what ends up actually materializing, because these moves that have happened already are moves that will have a butterfly effect from it. And I'm very, very excited to see who ends up going where and what the dollars, the cents, the trades end up looking like as these teams try to make their baseball team better for 2026 with the cloud of a potential lockout and shutdown in 2027. There's teams that have already showed they're willing to spend, willing to trade dollars around, willing to make commitments. There's players that have already said we're taking 1-year commitments at good dollars with the qualifying offer. There's a lot more thinking that goes into this offseason and off-seasons of past, and I'll be here every step of the way to walk you through my thoughts as we find out more and more together. Appreciate each and every one of you for spending your Solo Shot Saturday with me. If you enjoyed the program, make sure you like the video and subscribe on YouTube if you haven't already. Leave me a review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify if you're an audio-only listener, and share this podcast with someone who loves the game of baseball as much as we do. I'm Dom Anna, and I'll see you guys next week.